In the previous episode, we saw the involvement of the VOC in establishing New Guinea's connection with the Netherlands. In this episode, we will take a closer look at this relationship and how the Netherlands gained a foothold on the island. Somewhere in the Pacific Ocean in the year 1825, a ship sailed towards West New Guinea with on board Lieutenant Commander Dirk Hendrik Kolff. He was sent by the Dutch government on a reconnaissance expedition to New Guinea to look for a suitable location for a settlement and thereby secure possession of the southwest coast of New Guinea for the Dutch government. Lieutenant Kolff. He had by then been knighted to the Military Order of William. The MWO left the roadstead of the Moluccan island of Ambon on May 26, 1825, and did not return until 1826. He was commander of the Dutch brig of war Durga and sailed through the southern and little-known parts of the Moluccan archipelago, and along the previously unknown southern coast of New Guinea. Due to the shallow waters, Kolff was forced to follow the coast a great distance further northwest before landing near the Cook River, and on Lakahia Island. He reported on his visits to the peoples of New Guinea and wrote that they were Dutch-minded. The Dutch government found Kolff's report positive and took the decision to send another expedition to New Guinea with the goal of establishing a settlement at Lobo. Three years after Lieutenant Kolff's reconnaissance expedition. It was then 1828. Again two Dutch ships sailed towards New Guinea to conduct a natural science survey and establish a settlement. This expedition was politically motivated. The two ships bringing the expedition over were the corvette, Triton, and the schooner, Iris. The ship sailed past the Banda Islands and the Aru Islands toward Morocco, and then along the south coast back toward Bird's Head. The journey took about 4 months, and after much searching for a suitable anchorage, an administrative post was finally established in a bay south of the Bird's Head Peninsula in the coastal village of Lobo, close to Kaimana. The bay was named after the corvette that brought the expedition to New Guinea, the Triton. Because of the marshy coast, lack of drinking water and the hostile attitude of the encountered Papuans, the two ships sailed along the southern coast for 2 days, looking for a suitable landing site for a settlement. There were 88 people, including 23 women and 21 children, aboard the two expedition ships tasked with manning the settlement. The ships sailed between many small islands along a very densely vegetated coast with mountains. The water was clear and turquoise in color. For the expedition members, this view was breathtaking. Near the village of Lobo in Triton Bay, the ships finally dropped anchor and the expedition members were able to set foot on New Guinea for the first time. On August 24, 1828, on the birthday of King William I of the Netherlands, the Dutch flag was raised and the Dutch claims to parts of New Guinea were stated in a proclamation. The permanent settlement was a fort consisting of a number of buildings that served both as an administrative post and a trading post. Also, its purpose was to prevent expansion by the English. It is the very first European settlement in the region. The crew of the Triton stayed in Lobo for 2 months to help build the fort. This was named Fort du Bus, after the then Governor-General of the Dutch East Indies. Because the settlement was in a trade area of the Seram and Goram Islands, the expedition had to be very cautious and stay out of their route. After the departure of the Triton and the Iris, 88 people remained in the fortress, including natural scientists. The natural scientists who stayed behind were able to indulge themselves, because in practice it turned out that the Kaimana district had a rich fauna and flora. Thus during their stay on Lobo, these scientists discovered 21 new bird species, and 12 bird breeds, such as this blue Papuan kingfisher. As in all of New Guinea, this region is a haven for natural scientists such as French Durfiel. Besides wildly flowing rivers and waterfalls, it also has an impenetrable rainforest with a beautiful and rich animal world. The area where the fort was built proved to be very unhealthy and was actually in range of the hostile Goram and Seram merchants. Under their leadership, the fort was raided by hundreds of Papuans on September 11 and November 12, 1828, but these were able to be beaten back. In this unfortunate settlement, many lost their lives through disease and hardship. There were more than 100 deaths. The settlement proved to be a disaster. Its occupants, indigenous VOC soldiers and their families, died by the dozens. Regularly, new soldiers had to be sent to replenish the garrison. The climate, illnesses, attacks by Papuans, and its remoteness made the settlement a useless and costly enterprise. The administrative post was abolished and authority over New Guinea was no longer exercised. New Guinea was for the most part not under administration. There was hardly any knowledge about the interior. Large parts on the map were still a white spot, and one had no idea how many people actually lived on the island. For the Netherlands, New Guinea was a terra incognita, or undiscovered territory. Today the day, all that remains is a memorial on Lobo to this event. French natural scientist, Dumont d'Urville. We know him from an earlier episode. loved New Guinea so much that he went there for the second time. This time he visited Triton Bay in 1838. During his research at Triton Bay, he also visited Fort du Bus. Hitch found only palm trees and scrub on the site of the fort. D'Urville had discovered and collected, among others, the following unique birds and butterflies in the forests around Triton Bay. The border of the western part of New Guinea was informally established by the government of the Dutch East Indies on behalf of the Sultan of Tidor in 1848 at 141 degrees east longitude. In 1895 this became official and to this day is the unchanged boundary of Papua, the western part, with Papua New Guinea the eastern part. The Geelvink Bay is the largest and most famous bay of New Guinea. It is named after the VOC expedition ship the Geelvink, which was used by Jacob Wayland in 1705 when he discovered this bay. Yellow finch is a small yellow bird. This bay is also the trading ground of a very special trader. Through his trading network consisting of local Papua traders around Geelvink Bay, he purchased cultural artifact, spices and birds of paradise, among other things, and shipped them to Ternate on his own ship. His name was Fabricius, Capitaine Fabricius, and was mentioned all over New Guinea, even in the government circles of the Netherlands, because he knew very much about the area around Geelvink Bay. However, very little is known about him and was therefore called the Mystery Man. He lived with his family and 18 crew members on Rune Island in Geelvink Bay, a small island below Biak. Remember his name because it will appear more often in these episodes. On June 26, 1852, two missionaries, Carl W. Otto and Johann G. Geisler, left Holland on a Dutch East Indies ship, the Abel Tasman, bound for the Dutch East Indies, and arrived in Batavia 3.5 months later. A year and a half later, they headed for the island of Ternate. Here they had to wait for permission to go to New Guinea. During the preparations, they spoke with many sailors who had knowledge of New Guinea. One such person was Captain Fabricius. Fabricius was willing to help them and took them with his ship, Fear Not, to the island of Mansinam in New Guinea. This journey took more than 5 months. On February 5 in 1855, these two evangelists set foot on Mansinam, where they settled. Otto and Geisler were the two first missionaries to ever set foot in Dutch New Guinea. They knelt on the beach and said, "In God's name, we enter your land." On that day in 1855, however, the Papuans saw two white men go ashore, and they soon began putting the cargo of their ship, suitcases and crates, on the mainland. The Papuan women and children fled into cabins. The men kept their spears ready against this strange threat. However, it all worked out and they taught the people to read and write and help the sick. The Papuas called them the Apostles of Papua. They brought us the light, they said. Every year on this day, they are remembered. After a while Otto moved from Mansinam to Kwawi, which is a mainland region on the coast near Manokwari, after a scary time. On Sunday, November 9, 1862, Otto died of malaria or meningitis at age of 35. His grave lies today on the coastal road in Manokwari with a view of the island of Mansinam. A few years later Johann Gottlob Geisler returned with his wife and son to Germany, where he died in 1870. When we talk about the history of New Guinea, we cannot ignore the person Russel Wallace. Therefore, we pay special attention to this. Alfred Russel Wallace was a highly respected British naturalist, geographer, anthropologist and biologist. Wallace is best known for arriving independently of Charles Darwin at the insight that natural selection leads to the evolution of new species. Wallace traveled through the islands of what is now called Malaysia and Indonesia between 1854 and 1862. Wallace's journey to New Guinea began at Ternate. Here he was updated on New Guinea by our now famous Dutch freebooter Fabricius, the merchant who did business for a Dutch trading company on Ternate. Captain Fabricius, whom we have talked about before, left Ternate for New Guinea with Wallace on his schooner the Hester Helena, with the destination being the island of Mansinam near Manokwari in Dore Bay. Russel Wallace built his own house on the Dore Bay and also visited the two missionaries Otto and Geisler who lived on the island of Mansinam. From his home he sent out hunters to catch birds and insects. This expedition had not brought what Russel expected. There were almost no birds, it rained an awful lot, he had to deal with many sick people, one of whom died, he sprained his ankle. He also had to contend with lots of ants constantly attacking his zoological collection. From the locals he bought a tree kangaroo and his hunter shot some birds. What Wallace did manage to collect a lot of were beetles. Wallace decided to go back to Ternate and left Dore Bay disappointed. Russel collected more than 1,000 different species of beetles in an area of 1 square kilometer in the 3 months he spent in Dore. In 1860, Russel Wallace went back to New Guinea and this time he visited the Raja Ampat island of Waigeo. He took a great risk in a wooden canoe from Seram Island to Waigeo. His crew consisted of 4 men and his Ambonian hunter. He had underestimated the currents and monsoon and almost lost his life during this trip. During his research, Wallace had studied as many as 15 species of birds of paradise and many other unique birds. Here he wrote this about the bird of paradise. Nowhere in the world are the pigeons and parakeets so numerous and so incredibly beautiful. especially the crown pigeon. Wallace was very impressed with the diversity of rare birds and the beautiful colors they had. Even the beetles and butterflies looked very beautiful. Traditionally, the original inhabitants of New Guinea have been accustomed to keeping and trading the skins of these beautiful birds with the Malay traders, to whom they are commonly known as burung mati, or dead birds, because they have never seen them alive. Russell was in his element when he walked through the woods, as he enjoyed nature, the birds, and the streams. The sounds were music to his ears. He also enjoyed all the colors around him. On Waigeo, Wallace had been able to build up a reasonable collection of birds, butterflies and insects. His main interest was the red bird of paradise. He received much help from the islanders through a kind of barter. Here, too, Wallace experienced much drizzling weather. After 6 weeks, Russell left Waigeo and happily returned with the schooner Hester Helena to the island of Ternate. Alfred Russel Wallace wrote many books, but his book, Malay Archipelago, was the bestseller. The Dutch Royal Packet Navigation Company, or K.P.M., was founded in 1888 to provide the connections in the hinterland of the Dutch East Indies. Lines were also established between Amboina to New Guinea. In 1891, KPM started 12 weekly services from the Moluccan island of Ternate along the north and south coasts of the Dutch part of New Guinea, where there was not a single Dutch administrative post at that time. These later became the towns of Fakfak, Manokwari and Merauke. In the same year, Governor William MacGregor of British New Guinea made the diplomatic request to the Dutch if they could not put an end to headhunting in British New Guinea by the Papuans probably living on the Dutch side of the border. On December 27, 1899, about 4 naval officers from the KPM ship General Pell attempted to make informal contact while anchored near the 2 villages, near the 141st parallel. 3 of them disappeared and may have been killed and 1 was wounded in a subsequent ambush. Multiple searches came to nothing. The ship's officers were never found. The border between the 2 island territories of New Guinea was officially established in 1895 and remains the unchanged border of West Papua with Papua New Guinea to this day. The border begins in the north on the north coast of New Guinea, directly west of the Papuan village of Wudung and Mount Bougainville. It then continues in a straight vertical line south along the 141st meridian east. The northern part of eastern New Guinea belonged to Germany. In the year 1898, the Dutch government proceeded to establish 2 permanent administrative posts. Initially in Fak and Manokwari, and in 1902 a third administrative post was established in Merauke. Fak is located in the southwestern part of the Bird's Head. The ancient name of this settlement was Kapur. Historically, Fak was an important port city and the only city with ties to the Sultanate of Tidore. Fak has about 1.5 kilometers of white beaches and the waters around Fak are breathtaking and very eye-catching. Manokwari is the second administration post in New Guinea after Fak and is located in the northeastern part of the Bird's Head on Dori Bay. This town is known for its beautiful white beaches. Christianity on New Guinea began here. The name of the town is Numfaries and means Old Village. This area was historically inhabited by coastal people related to the inhabitants of the Numfar Islands between Manokwari and Biak. On November 26, 1900, the naval vessel the Serdang and the flotilla ship Sumatra went to Merauke to stop the attacks of the headhunters. A trip was made into the interior, but the group was strafed several times from all sides, whereupon the group fired back and in revenge burned down the Kajikarika Negri, which stopped the attacks. On February 12, 1902, a Dutch military administrative post was established. Some time later, the KPM ship Van Goens together with the piloting flotilla ship Nias anchored at the spot where the Merauke administrative post was officially established. With the establishment of these administrative posts, this episode has come to an end. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you subscribe to my YouTube channel, I will keep you updated on my new productions. Sharing is not a problem. In the next episode we follow research expeditions in southern New Guinea. See you back in the next episode called Terra Nova Incognita.